Hi everyone, this is my sci-fi summer readathon wrap-up. Readathon ran for 7 days and I posted a TBR a couple of days ago because the editing on my video didn't happen until quite late, so I was late posting it. But anyway, for those who know, who've watched it, I had 3 books on there. One was a tome, one was a graphic novel, and one was a young reader YA book. And I've done pretty well as far as I'm concerned. I have read just under 1,000 pages in 7 days, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. No, I didn't finish all the books, but I did, quite comfortably for what I wanted to do. So first up, I started by reading The Many-Coloured Land by Julian May. This is over 500 pages long, and it's the first in the Galactic Milu series following the saga of the Exiles. Okay, this book has been recommended to me several times by my husband. I have heard bits of this story before because he's read it to me, but I was so tired I kept falling asleep. So bits of it were recognisable to me. I actually did remember hubby reading it to me in parts, but there were other parts that were just very, very new. I really enjoyed this book. It's, the word classic is thrown about a lot, but considering this is published at the very beginning of the 80s, it is one of those books that I think a lot more people should have read because it's kind of the precursor to Game of Thrones. We're introduced to this futuristic world that is so alien to anything we could possibly comprehend. And then we're introduced to several different characters who we will be following throughout the stories. And they're all very different. They've all got their own quirks and their own ideals and their own way of accepting the life that they are in. The saga of the Exiles follows 8 people as they travel from now to the Pliocene era in Earth's distant prehistorical past. That sounds fun, doesn't it? It's a one-way ticket. They can't come back because of various circumstances that are explained at the very beginning of this book, and they make preparations to leave their old lives behind and go into exile to get on with whatever they want to do in Earth's past. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite turn out the way that they all thought it was going to turn out, and that's where this story really does start kicking off. I did like all the introduction, like the first third of the book is introducing all these guys, introducing the world, getting us up to speed with how things have changed and why things are so hard for certain types of people to cope in this future world. And I really enjoyed all that, but the minute they step through that time gate and enter the Pliocene era and things are not as they expect them to be, the story really kicks off and we're suddenly into conflict zone. We're into, hang on, what am I going to do about this? Am I all about me all of a sudden, like some of our characters are, or I'm going to care about those that I've grown to know for a little bit? And I really, really like the way that a lot of the characters develop over this book, that they grow. I'm looking forward to reading The Golden Talk, which is the next one in the series, because the last chunk of this book only follows about half of our characters throughout a series of events, and so I'm kind of wondering what's happened to the other half of the characters and what's been going on while everything's been going on with our other group that we've been following. And I don't want to say too much because of spoilers, because it's really worth going in blind into these books and just hanging on and going for the ride. I will give you a heads up, don't flick to the last pages in these books, because Julian May is known for leaving books on one hell of a cliffhanger and giving the twist to the story on more or less the last line. And like Game of Thrones, we don't know who's going to make it out of this world, who's going to survive these events. So you don't want to spoiler yourself by reading the last page or even flicking to the last pages. You can really land yourself in a lot of trouble and sort of go, I just had a big spoiler dropped on me. So try and avoid looking at the back of the book until you've read the whole thing. You'll get what I'm on about when you've actually read it, because she does it a few times. She's very bad for it apparently. And so yeah, Many-Coloured Land, really enjoyed it. If you like Game of Thrones style fantasy with a healthy dose of sci-fi instead. If you're interested in prehistory in Earth's timeline, if you like multiple characters who are complex, who aren't necessarily the good guys, and if you like alien conflict and all that kind of stuff, you're gonna like the Many Coloured Land. Like I say, hang on in for like the first few chapters, because until you get the hang of what's going on and that you've been introduced to everyone, it can be a bit of like, okay, who's this? Okay, I'm learning that. Okay, it's a new okay, I'm learning that. Once you get past that and you get into the story, it's absolutely fine. Hubby said that could be a problem for me. I said, well, it's just what Game of Thrones did. They introduced you to a character and then dumped somebody else on you in the next chapter. So it's now not an alien concept, but back in the 80s when this was written, I think it was quite new and refreshing, to be honest. So yeah, Many Coloured Land. I then managed to plough through Heroes Volume 1. This is a graphic novel series that was initially published online on the website to run alongside the season 1 of the television series of the same name. These are really clever, short little excerpts that dip in and out the episodes, introduce us a bit more to some of the characters we've seen on screen, introduce us to characters we haven't really seen on screen, and particularly a character called Wireless. Her story runs throughout certainly the second half of this arc. She's very key to the events going on in the comic and possibly on screen. I'd have to re-watch it. It's been a while since I've seen it to actually register if she's actually on screen or if she's just alluded to. I really liked Heroes. I've liked all 4 seasons of Heroes and the Heroes Reborn series. We're big Heroes fans in this house, so anything along those lines I'm very keen on. The graphic novel, like I said in my TBR, it's all beautifully illustrated. Characters hold their recognition from the TV show, so you can see the actor in a particular look in a shot. And I like the way it just builds on the whole mythos of Heroes. What I particularly like is they use the Ninth Wonder comic from the TV show as their main cover and give us a little snippet of either an episode on the TV or from the comic itself, so it's kind of cool. There's Peter from the TV series, it's kind of cool doing his thing. So yeah, Heroes, and this was 232 pages, so I was pretty chuffed that I managed to read that quite quickly. I would say if you're a fan of Heroes the TV series, or even just a fan of like X-Men and evolution of the human race kind of stories, then I would probably recommend this to you. I would say you might benefit more if you've seen season 1 of the TV show, or if you watch that alongside reading these comics. I think it would certainly build more into what you read and what you see on screen, and just immerse yourself in that whole universe a lot more. Finally, yesterday morning, I started reading Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve. For those of you who aren't in the loop, this is being adapted into a movie by Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings and Hobbit fame. And I've only got in 191 pages. I'm in like part 3, I think I'm in. Oh no, part 2 I'm in. And I can see why Peter Jackson wants to do this, because some of the imagery that is described in this book is very much up his street. We've only seen one production still, and yeah, it's very much what's described on the page is what you see in that photo. This follows a dystopian steampunk future where cities and towns are effectively moving cities and towns, and everybody lives on the back of them. And London is one of those cities that likes to gobble up everything else that it can find. But we've got to a point where supplies are running out, food is running out, the amount of towns to gobble up is running out, and things are getting a bit desperate. And of course there's this big dark secret going on as well that those at the top, literally, of London know about. And it's not a good thing as far as I can tell from where I've got through. It's, you know, it's something that really we shouldn't be having in this world at all, because it's going to tip the tide. We follow a young historian from the museum called Tom, who basically gets on the wrong side of somebody, sees something he shouldn't have done, and is kicked out of London. This could have been fatal, but unfortunately for him it wasn't, and he's never stepped foot off London, so to be in the open country is a bit terrifying for him. That's what they call the wasteland that's left. And he teams up with a lass called Hester, who's on a quest for vengeance, and Tom is on a quest to get home, basically. And these two characters team up, and some secrets about London's main members come out of the woodwork, and things aren't as pretty as Tom thinks they are. There's also a young girl called Catherine, who is the daughter of one of the main characters, and she has lived a lovely secluded life on the top layer of London. She's a high honoured lady in London, until she starts finding out how things really work in the city, and she's a bit appalled by it. But she's also trying to find out the truth of what's going on, what's wrong with her father, why he won't tell her something, and why Hester is hunting him. And I've got another chunk of this to go. I've got like 40% left to read. Thank you, Goodreads. It's okay. I'm enjoying it, but not as much as I should be enjoying it. I like the kind of concept of it, but I'm not sure if it's explained well enough about why the cities are all suddenly on traction wheels and chasing everybody, and the whole gobbling up of other towns, and that I'm not quite sure how that really goes about. I have read Fever Crumb, which is a prequel to this series, and I really enjoyed that because that's set before the whole traction city thing, and I really liked that. So I'm not sure if I'm just not getting Mortal Engines, I'm just, there's not enough given to me to tell me why things are this way, or I'm just gonna have to take a lot on faith. I don't know, but I do remember I preferred Fever Crumb to what I'm reading right now. I will finish this book because completeness sake. It's interesting enough to want me to know where this is going. Apparently I think there are 3 more in the Mortal Engines series, so I'll have to see if I'm going to get around to reading them or not. But anyway, there we go. So they were my sci-fi summer reads. I haven't read some proper sci-fi since about February, so I'm quite chuffed that I've managed to do 2.5 in a week. That's kind of cool and brings up my quota quite nicely. So yeah, please let me know what you read this last week. Did you keep to sci-fi? Did you deviate into fantasy? Let me know what you thought of these books if you've read them. And thank you very much for watching. Please follow me on Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter. Links as usual in the description box down below. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.